She's a wonderful woman. I think she's a powerful force of good and positive energy.
But you ain't no Elon.
But she also brought us Dr. Oz and The Secret. We have to remember what this lady has done.
She has to be held accountable.
I forgive her, but I mean, cut the The Secret is a particularly egregious offense.
What, you just...
Oh, you don't believe?
You don't believe?
Oh, believe? Believe?
I want to be rich. I am rich.
I imagine myself flying. I can fly. I will beat my wings until I take off.
What happens when America's podcasting king and a fearless journalist decide to tear down the carefully constructed image of one of the most powerful women in media? Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly just delivered a brutal reality check that left Oprah Winfrey's empire looking more like a house of cards than a media dynasty. This wasn't just criticism, this was a complete dismantling of decades of carefully crafted messaging that millions of Americans bought into without question. For years, we've been told that questioning Oprah makes you a hater, that dissecting her brand means you're not spiritually aligned. But what Rogan and Kelly exposed goes way deeper than anyone imagined. They didn't just point out flaws, they revealed an entire system built on contradictions, manipulation, and dangerous advice disguised as wisdom. The awakening hit Megyn Kelly like a freight train. She admitted something that millions of Americans are just now realizing. She'd been getting spoon-fed propaganda from Oprah for years, without even knowing it. Kelly confessed that before becoming a reporter, she never thought to question whether Oprah might be intentionally misleading people. Then the realization struck. Oprah isn't a journalist reporting facts. She's a propagandist selling a carefully constructed narrative. This revelation changes everything we thought we knew about. The woman who became America's spiritual advisor. Kelly described taking Oprah's little setup packages as gospel truth, never questioning the agenda behind the soft lighting and emotional manipulation. It's like discovering your trusted friend has been lying to your face for decades, except this friend has a billion-dollar media empire and millions of devoted followers.
I used to love Oprah, like most of us who grew up when we did, and only now did I realize I've been getting spoon-fed propaganda from this woman for years. I always took her little setup packages as gospel. You know, before I was a reporter, I never even thought to question whether Oprah might be intentionally misleading me. Then last night, the dawn came and I was like, oh my God, she is not a reporter, she's a propagandist.
Joe Rogan is calling out Oprah and Michelle Obama for hypocritical speeches at the DNC. Watch.
She's up there talking about income inequality. Like, hey, lady.
Yeah, I know.
You're rich as... Like, how is that equal? And also, when Michelle Obama was saying, you know, I think she was saying her mother or grandmother was always suspicious of people who took more than they needed.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
you are worth so much money.
Take more than they need. The Obamas have 4 mansions.
I mean, it's a bunch of rich people talking about rich people.
The most disturbing part? Kelly isn't alone in this realization. Across America, people are waking up to the fact that they've been emotionally manipulated by someone they trusted completely. The woman who positioned herself as the nation's moral compass was actually steering people toward products, ideas, and beliefs that served her empire more than her audience. Joe Rogan went straight for the jugular when he brought up The Secret, that infamous book Oprah promoted that convinced millions of people they could think their way to success. Rogan couldn't believe how a 50-year-old billionaire could promote such obvious nonsense to desperate people looking for hope. The book sold over 20 million copies, promising cancer patients they just needed to vibe higher and telling broke people they could manifest wealth through positive thinking. What makes this particularly disgusting is the timing. When The Secret came out in 2006, Oprah was already worth billions and had decades of life experience. She knew better, she had to know better, yet she platformed this dangerous magical thinking to people who needed real solutions, not fairy tales. Rogan was right to call it hocus pocus, except this wasn't harmless entertainment. It was potentially deadly advice marketed as life-changing wisdom.
What's up?
Yeah.
It was one of the more I want to say disturbing, but it was confusing when that was taking hold with people. when I had friends that were telling me that the secret is real and that they imagined they were going to fulfill these childhood dreams that they had about whatever, being a fucking astronaut, whatever it would be. There's a couple people that I knew that were trying to tell me that the secret was going to be the thing, and that they had a vision board and they had photographs, they put pictures up of the things that they wanted, like them in front of large crowds and shit. And I'm like, oh boy.
Them in front of large crowds.
This is so not how it works.
But then, Joe Rogan, America's favorite cage fight.
The worst part about the secret phenomenon wasn't just the false hope it sold. It was how it blamed victims for their circumstances. Can't cure your cancer. You're not manifesting hard enough. Still living paycheck to paycheck? Your vision. Bored isn't powerful enough. This victim blaming disguised as empowerment became a cornerstone of Oprah's brand, and millions ate it up because it came wrapped in her warm, trusted delivery. Then came Dr. Oz, Oprah's handpicked medical expert, who turned out to be more snake oil salesman than scientist. Rogan couldn't contain his disbelief at how Oprah launched this guy into mainstream prominence, watching him recommend raspberry ketones like they were miracle cures from some advanced civilization. Dr. Oz became the poster child for everything wrong with Oprah's platform, taking legitimate medical authority and twisting it into entertainment that prioritized ratings over people's health. But Dr. Oz wasn't alone in Oprah's gallery of questionable experts. There was Dr. Phil, the Southern Fried motivational speaker whose biggest claim to fame became yelling at teenagers on daytime TV. These weren't just bad choices, they were systematic failures that revealed how Oprah's empire prioritized charisma over credentials, entertainment over ethics. Each expert she elevated became another brick in a wall of pseudoscience and pop psychology that millions of people trusted because it came with Oprah's stamp of approval.
Did you see the Oprah interview?
No.
It's off the rails.
Yeah,
Off the rails.
I heard about it.
Into fucking wine mom country again.
Wow.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that.
Tim Dillon is the best. Tim Dillon's like, she's saying gypsy curses. What is she saying?
When was the last time Oprah actually spent time hanging out with a working class person in America? She's on her Montecito estate with one of the most beautiful mansions known to man. And that is why she did not follow up with Kamala Harris in response to that stupid gun question with, well, you're on camera saying that you favor mandatory gun buybacks. So how would that work? The Oprah enthusiasm worked when it was genuine.
Yeah, so let's think of when The Secret came out. I want to say that was like 2006-ish.
2004.
2006.
Nice.
Okay. So 12 years ago, she was 50 years old. How the fuck do you not know when you're 50 years old and worth $1 billion that that's not how it works?
That it's hocus pocus.
Yeah, it's not hocus pocus.
Yeah.
And to sell that to people is crazy. And that's a book that sold, I think I was reading, it sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 million copies.
Wow.
Is that what it says? Yeah.
Jeez.
The pattern became clear. Oprah didn't vet her experts for accuracy or safety. She chose them for their ability to create compelling television. The result was a parade of charlatans and questionable practitioners who used her platform to spread dangerous misinformation to vulnerable audiences desperate for real help. The hypocrisy reached peak absurdity during the 2024 Democratic National Convention, when Oprah gave speeches about income inequality while being worth billions herself. Joe Rogan couldn't hold back his amazement at the audacity. Here's a woman talking about economic justice from her private vineyard, lecturing working class Americans about inequality while sitting on a fortune that could fund small countries. Rogan pointed out the obvious contradiction that somehow escaped mainstream media coverage. You can't credibly speak about economic struggle when you haven't experienced it in decades, if ever. Oprah's speeches about taking only what you need rang hollow when delivered by someone with multiple mansions and a private jet. It wasn't just tone deaf, it was insulting to the very people she claimed to champion. The Michelle Obama comparison made it even worse. Both women stood on that stage talking about suspicion of people who take more than they need, while representing the pinnacle of American wealth accumulation. The Obamas have 4 mansions, Oprah has estates that require their own zip codes. Yet they positioned themselves as voices for economic justice. Rogan saw right through the performance. It was rich people talking to rich people about rich people, with working Americans used as props in their political theater.
trying to shove messaging down my throat of whatever she believes, not what's real. So you remember she did that like kind of factual interview after the quote documentary of Michael Jackson?
Yes.
That was so dishonest.
Yes.
She did not raise any of those accusers' serious compromising facts when she had them right there. Maybe they're telling the truth, maybe they're not. But as a journalist, you have to at least ask. You know, you've got multiple lawsuits against his estate, sir. Might that be an incentive to lie? Didn't ask. You've got these accusations against him. You had a book that you were supposed to produce about Michael Jackson in the context of litigation where you were required to turn this stuff over, and you lied saying that you didn't have it. And you only got found out because Random House and these other publishers admitted you shopped it to them and turned over the metadata to Michael Jackson's estate. This guy, my point is simply, this one accuser was very compromised, and she had him right after the documentary. It aired on HBO right after. Didn't ask a question. Then she gets Meghan Markle. That was another propaganda fest.
Megyn Kelly delivered the killing blow when she dissected Oprah's journalistic failures, starting with the Michael Jackson documentary Aftermath. Kelly pointed out how Oprah had the accusers right there, with the perfect opportunity to ask tougher questions about inconsistencies in their stories, potential financial incentives, and prior contradictions. Instead, Oprah delivered softball questions that felt more like therapy than journalism. This wasn't just bad interviewing, it was a complete abdication of journalistic responsibility. Kelly noted how Oprah had booked deals and business relationships connected to the case, yet failed to disclose these conflicts of interest while presenting herself as an objective voice seeking truth. The pattern repeated with Meghan Markle, where Oprah again failed to press on serious accusations, allowing unsubstantiated claims to go unchallenged. What made these failures particularly damaging was Oprah's reputation. When she interviews someone, millions of people assume she's done her homework and asked the hard questions. Her softball approach doesn't just enable her guests, it misleads her audience into thinking they're getting the full story when they're actually getting a carefully curated narrative designed for maximum emotional impact.
My point is coming from the other way. She had the accusers there, and the accusers may or may not have had this experience with Michael Jackson.
Oh, you're talking about the HBO doc?
Yes.
Yes.
But she failed to bring up prior inconsistencies in their stories that really did compromise their stories. I don't know what happened.
I understand what you're saying.
So
okay,
I'm just saying, as a journalist, which she purports to be,
right,
it was a complete fail.
Right.
And then she committed the same failure with Meghan Markle,
yes,
where she didn't press any of her claims of racism in the royal family. And now we have the ultimate culmination of her journalistic fails. Oprah didn't help by sort of saying it's cheating. What do you mean it's cheating? It's a drug that helps people control their appetite. How is that cheating? So she was probably on the wrong side of things when she was saying that. And now I think she was sort of forced to admit, because as you say, it's obvious. Somebody like Oprah, who's constantly up and down with the weight and hasn't been on the skinnier side for a long time. And then suddenly, after this miracle drug comes out, like, we know. But she's still a spokesperson for Weight Watchers, and I guess she's going to still tell us that the point system is really what's behind the weight loss.
Kelly emphasized that real journalism requires asking uncomfortable questions, even when you like your guest. Oprah's approach prioritized maintaining relationships and creating compelling television over pursuing truth, turning her interviews into sophisticated propaganda sessions disguised as heart-to-heart conversations. Perhaps the most glaring contradiction in Oprah's empire involves her recent weight loss journey. For decades, she built her brand on body positivity and self-acceptance, telling millions of women they were perfect just as they are. Then suddenly, she's promoting weight loss drugs while still maintaining partnerships with Weight Watchers. Trying to have it both ways, Rogan couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of it all. One moment she's the champion of loving yourself unconditionally, the next she's essentially admitting that pharmaceutical intervention was the real solution all along. But instead of owning this contradiction, Oprah tried to spin it as some kind of spiritual evolution, as if discovering weight loss medication was part of her journey toward authenticity. The Weight Watchers connection made it even more ridiculous. She's still getting paid to promote point systems and portion control, while privately using drugs that make those systems irrelevant. It's like being a spokesperson for bicycles while secretly driving a Ferrari. Technically not illegal, but completely dishonest to the people who trust your recommendations.
When she first hit the scene in like the 1980s, and she was fresh out of Chicago, she was in Chicago for the launch of her national talk show, she was something electric and interesting and authentic, you know? I miss fat Oprah. She was just genuine. Now this thin Ozempic Oprah has lost, along with the pounds, her heart, her sense of authenticity. And what we're getting these days is this cleansed, elite, billionaire version who wants to scrub the record of fat.
Kelly pointed out how this contradiction encapsulates everything wrong with Oprah's brand. She's not authentic, she's calculated. Every message gets tested against profit margins and brand positioning. The woman who preaches truth and vulnerability operates behind layers of PR machinery that would make politicians jealous. What Rogan and Kelly ultimately exposed wasn't just individual contradictions. It was an entire empire built on emotional manipulation disguised as empowerment. Oprah didn't build a media company, she built a belief system where she's simultaneously the prophet and the product. Every spiritual message comes with a price tag. Every moment of vulnerability is calculated for maximum impact. The soft lighting, the dramatic pauses, the tears on cue, none of it is accidental. It's all designed to bypass critical thinking and hit viewers directly in their emotional centers. Rogan described it perfectly as Oscar-worthy marketing, disguised as personal growth. People don't just watch Oprah, they experience her, and that experience is carefully engineered to create dependency and loyalty that transcends normal celebrity relationships. Kelly added that this goes beyond fake humility into fake activism territory. Oprah positions herself as a voice for justice and equality while operating from a position of extreme privilege that insulates her from the consequences of the advice she gives. She can promote risky health trends because she has the best medical care money can buy. She can preach about financial responsibility because she'll never face real economic consequences. The most damaging aspect of Oprah's empire isn't what she's done, it's what she's prevented. By positioning herself as the ultimate authority on personal growth and social issues, she's crowded out voices that might offer more substantial solutions. People seeking real help get diverted into her ecosystem of products, books, and experts that prioritize feeling good over getting better. Rogan and Kelly didn't just criticize Oprah, they performed an autopsy on an empire that was already dying from its own contradictions. The woman who became famous for authenticity revealed herself to be the most sophisticated manipulator in media history. Her brand of inspiration was actually exploitation, her wisdom was marketing, and her spiritual guidance was just really expensive therapy disguised as entertainment. The facade is finally cracking because people are getting smarter. About media manipulation, the techniques that worked in the pre-internet era don't hold up under scrutiny from podcasters and independent journalists who aren't afraid to ask uncomfortable questions. Rogan and Kelly represent a new era of media where influence has to be earned through consistency and honesty, not just emotional manipulation and celebrity worship. What's left after stripping away the candles, soft piano music, and manufactured tears is a business empire that prioritized profit over people, brand building over truth-telling, and emotional manipulation over genuine help. Oprah didn't lift people up. She made them dependent on her version of inspiration while selling them products and ideas that often made their lives worse. The days of Oprah's unchallenged cultural authority are over. Thanks to voices like Rogan and Kelly, Americans are finally asking the questions they should have been asking for decades. Who benefits from this message? What's being sold alongside the inspiration? And why should we trust someone who's gotten rich by telling us what we want to hear instead of what we need to know? The empire built on vibes and vision boards is finally collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions, and honestly, it's about time.